again, and welcome to Foreplay Radio Sex Therapy. I'm your host, certified sex therapist Laurie Watson, author of Wanting Sex Again, and blogger at Psychology Today and WebMD. And I have with me Dr. Adam Mathews, my co-host, who's a couples therapist, psychotherapist, and president of NCAMFT. Foreplay is dedicated to helping couples keep it hot. Each episode, we cover an aspect of sex that impacts your sex life and something that you can relate to. So if you find our discussions helpful, please give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. We would love it if you would tell a friend about us. You can find us also on the web at foreplayrst.com. And if you have a comment or a topic that you'd like us to talk about, we'd love to hear from you. Please send them to us at info@foreplayrst.com. Thanks for listening. Now on to today's topic. So today's episode, Adam, we're going to talk about midlife, the midlife crises and sex.
Let's define midlife so I know where I fall. I'm not quite sure.
You are like very young.
I think you think I'm younger than I actually am.
No.
I'm about to be 40.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, I don't consider that old, but I don't like... I feel like, that's halfway, right? Is 40 still halfway?
No. They actually say it's not. So 50 is really more midlife.
50 is more. Yeah. So I got a few years before.
You got a decade.
A decade before.
Before your midlife.
Before my midlife crisis.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything I should do to prepare for this coming?
Stay in shape.
Stay in shape. Some trying.
That would really help. I think what men say, and I reviewed a little bit of this book, Passages, which is a book that came out probably when I was younger, right, in my 30s, I think. And the issue for men is they say, sex isn't that great. It isn't as great as it was. And so they have this incredible desire to be young again. And that is one of the gripping sexual issues that hits at midlife.
Do you think... Are people still having this? Is this still...
having midlife crises?
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
It seems like... I don't know. I mean...
Yes.
I feel like it's so cliched now that people should see it coming, but maybe they don't.
I think just how people tell you, your children are going to grow up in a blink of an eye, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it is true. It is true that your children are just growing so fast. And I think the thing that is also true is that midlife crises, midlife hits you and you're there suddenly, and you had no expectation that it would happen to you, that you would suddenly be old or older. And I mean, it just sneaks up on you.
Nice.
And there's all these, problems that happen. It's this moment where looking forward there's less time ahead than there is behind. Looking ahead is shorter. When you're young, you have this expanse of time, and it's like, oh, I can accomplish all these things. And suddenly you go, you know what? I have to make choices.
Yeah.
I have to make choices about all kinds of things, about are the people in my life people who give me energy and grace. Somebody said that to me recently, that her choices are to be only with friends that give to her in terms of energy and that are people who build her up. She's just doesn't have time anymore for, people who drag her down.
So is it the idea you're facing your own mortality?
Yeah, you're facing your own mortality and the fact that life will be over. This is the amount of time I've probably got, and I can only love so much. I have to prioritize things so that this is it. This is my one life. And I mean, people may have spiritual beliefs about an everlasting life, but in terms of on earth right now, this is what I've got. And suddenly it's limited. And that is just a startling realization.
And so you start making choices that you may not have made earlier. And your choices start to become more specific and intentional.
And, the man buying the convertible, right, is like, well, I deserve this. I've saved money my whole life. I haven't spent money. I haven't done enough fun. Maybe I've been too invested in work. Or people look at their marriages and they say, you know what? This doesn't make me happy. This person that I'm with, there's nothing left here. There's no juice. There's no love. A lot of times people stay together, right, until their kids go off to college. And that's about midlife for most of us.
Yeah.
And so it's like, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? And sexually, if you've been in a partnership where you're not growing and planning and prioritizing sex, and suddenly you go, you know what? it's harder to get it up, It's harder to, I'm dry, and it's harder to have an orgasm if you're a woman. And it's like, is this really what you want to keep doing for your one and only true life, right?
But there it sounds like, though, you're saying that sex becomes less of a priority, whereas what I guess what maybe the cliched, stereotypical response I see in midlife is seeking out, is having an affair, honestly. And seeking out somebody younger, or at least for men possibly, is seeking out somebody younger, somebody they perceive to be hotter, something like that typifies that desire. So
I think part of it, though, is the impetus for that is also personal, not just relational. I mean, people realize they're losing sexual power. A power of attraction is waning. We're not as attractive at 50 and 60 as we were at 20 and 30 and 40. I think 40 is the most beautiful age, I will say. Actually, I think men hit their peak at about 55. That is, they look so manly. They're so, they're real men at that age, but they're like, not fading. I mean, I don't know. I think that's a really beautiful age.
Cool. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that what you were talking about too is that they don't feel as desirable in and of themselves. When somebody else expresses that desire in them, then that really that's very attractional.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Which can lead, I would assume, can lead to a lot of these questions that you're talking about. Is, do I really want to be with this person who's not making me happy, who doesn't desire me?
Or you think, well, my partner is used to me. They're not giving me the appreciation and the compliments for both what I've achieved and who I am. And, some young thing suddenly who's hot and sexy, sees me as powerful, sees me as potent. And then it's like, that's a hit. That's a hit to the ego right at a time when you're losing kind of your own confidence.
Yeah, that's very hard to resist, and especially in that moment.
Yeah, and I mean, I think women as well. Women make choices too in midlife. It's like, do I want to be with somebody who hasn't talked to me for the last 20 years? No, I really don't. I want to be with somebody who finds me interesting, who finds me sexy, who sees me.
Right.
I think this is one problem in long-term marriage is we stop seeing each other.
Yeah.
We think we know everything about each other, and it's like the questions stop coming. We can't learn anything new.
Yeah.
And sexually, without that kind of interest, I think for women there is less punch. Somebody being interested in us is really hot.
Right. But women are they don't want bad sex lives either, and so like if both people have lost interest in each other, their sex life is going to suffer. Mm-hmm. So I think that also becomes a consideration as well.
And I think you're challenging your internal ideas as well at midlife. I mean, it's like, gosh, I've been inhibited for the last 30 years in this marriage. And, I'm fantasizing of not being inhibited. And I want to go out there and experiment sexually in an uninhibited way. So do I need to offload the guy who I can maybe blame for the inhibition versus my own reckoning, like, oh, maybe I've been uninhibited.
Yeah. It seems like
I've been inhibited.
Yeah, it seems like what you're talking about is that there's a real crossroads where you start to look back over life and go, what are the choices I've made that I'm satisfied with? But more so, what are the choices that I've made that I really regret?
Yes.
And that are really have led me to a place where maybe I don't want to be anymore. Right, because I think that happens. You're making choices. You're not really thinking about your choices a lot of times in the long-term life type context.
Yeah.
You're really thinking about what's the best move for my career right now. What's the best for our relationship right now? And it's really hard to think in broader terms. And so maybe you get to midlife and you look back and you go, well, what am I satisfied with where I am and what I've got?
And I think in our 30s and our 40s, we put our head down and we put our nose to the grindstone and we just take it one day at a time. I mean, we're raising children. We have kids to support. We have careers to develop. And you can barely think about and assess your life. But in your 50s, suddenly sometimes there's a little more space. The kids are grown. Maybe you have achieved enough financial security that you're like, okay, I don't need to do this work a day, every day kind of thing. I want to look and see what might be more meaningful to me, because it looks like, death is 30 years from now. I've lived 50 years, and death is 30 years from now, and it's scary.
Yeah.
I mean, the crossroads of midlife, I believe, is our fading power and our increased sense of vulnerability. We're facing death. I mean, we're also facing oftentimes declining health, declining sexual prowess, maybe erections, menopause, male pause. I mean, there's all these things that are going on. We're losing our parents, or we've lost our parents.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how that, when that happens, the ceiling, is gone. And suddenly the sense of exposure of, oh, I'm the oldest generation here. That becomes very keen to us. And I say that as both my husband and I have lost our fathers this last year, just, how different that changes your viewpoint about life.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about midlife crises and sex and what we're facing, and this is your sex therapist, Laurie Watson, and couples therapist, Dr. Adam Mathews. We'll be right back after this break.
Wanting Sex Again: How to Rediscover Desire and Heal a Sexless Marriage by certified sex therapist Laurie Watson.
Each chapter is designed to fix one of the problems that cause low libido, from early marriage through the childbearing years, even all the way through menopause. I've also had men read it and tell me that for them it was the most hopeful thing they read about resolving sexual problems.
Look for Wanting Sex Again on Amazon.com. You can also talk to Laurie Watson for therapy in person or via Skype.
I offer couples counseling and sex therapy, and I think about both aspects of the relationship, emotional intimacy and sexual technique, and that combination together helps marriages be happy.
Improve your sex and improve your relationship with Awakening Center for Couples and Intimacy. Find out more at awakenloveandsex.com. Awaken what's possible.
It is one of my great joys in life to be able to really help individuals and couples find strength in their relationships and really find hope again.
Licensed marriage and family therapist, Dr. Adam Mathews from Mathews Counseling.
I work with a wide variety of issues, including depression and anxiety, marital issues, issues with adolescence. I believe that therapy should be designed around you, that it should be personalized to who you are and to your unique situation.
Therapy is available in office, online, and by phone.
I want therapy to be comfortable for everyone. At our office, you'll find that we sit around a fireplace in deep, comfortable chairs, look at the problem differently, and offer practical solutions for you to take home and utilize outside of the therapy room.
Schedule today and rediscover hope.
You can find me on the web at mathewscounseling.net, Mathews with one T. You can contact us through email or phone and find a lot of resources on our website, mathewscounseling.net.
Okay, so Adam, I have this joke, and it's about a man and a frog.
Now, Laurie, before you tell it, I want to know: is it a funny joke? Is it gonna make me belly laugh, or is it gonna make me ha ha laugh?
I don't know if it's a funny joke. It's funny to me.
Okay. Okay, well, hit me with it. Let's see.
Okay. So I think Adam doesn't think this joke is funny is what he's trying to tell you.
No.
Okay, so there's
funny.
this older man, and he's walking down the street, right? And he hears a frog talking. And the frog says, if you pick me up, I'll turn into a beautiful woman if you kiss me. And so the man thinks about it, and he picks up the frog, puts the frog into his pocket, and walks along. And the frog starts to complain, well, aren't you going to kiss me? I'll turn into a ravishing woman and you can have me all you want. And eventually the man says, I think I'd rather have a talking frog in my pocket. And Adam doesn't think this is funny.
No, I think it's funny.
But I think the issue
funny.
when you're at midlife is some of what happens is, there's a lot of pressure with the demand for hot sex, especially if your erections are waning. And sometimes also I think we're more compelled toward meaning.
Yeah.
I want to have sex that's meaningful to me, with somebody who's interested in me, who appreciates me.
Yeah.
But I also think there's one thing that people come to is that there are other values that are super important. And I think that this value of connection grows, especially for men, I think, who maybe have felt more compelled to build their financial kingdom, and certainly women these days feeling compelled as well to build their financial kingdom. But at midlife, you go, is this all there is? Is it worth the money? Was it worth sacrificing time with my children to be working 60 hours a week?
Yeah. It sounds like, too, that you could go down two different roads, right? It seems like you can go down a road that tries to reclaim youth, that tries to have an experience or another person, to try to get that back. And I think that's what the kind of some of the stereotypical stuff of affairs or, big cars or, other things like that don't really work, right, in the way that I think they're trying to get them to work. Would you agree with that?
I think they don't work because they see the locus of the problem outside of the self.
Yeah.
I mean, in midlife, the challenge is, and this is from David and Jill Scharf, who are sex therapists and amazing psychiatrists, and they say, that the choice is either growth and regeneration or threat and retreat. And so people, when they're afraid, sometimes they externalize that and try to, sort of grab something else that will renew them instead of doing the hard work of this process, facing your mortality, facing your choices, making those difficult changes inside so that you become the person who is compelling, or you look at your partner differently. I mean, is that
the person that you want to be? Like the person that you're trying to be there, or becoming that person?
Yeah, I think you want to be the person who is growing internally, who doesn't retreat and say, well, this is all life has, and I'm going to just wait it out. I mean, I have lots of friends who are at midlife or beyond, and some of them are growing, deepening people. They're growing with each other, and others of them, it's like they're settling. It's like, well, this is as good as we can make it. And so they don't continue to try to work on their relationship, let alone their sex life. They just settle. This is it. And it's really sad. You almost see their personality kind of shrinking, going into their shell. There's a sadness when you watch people make that choice.
Yeah. And so how do we fight back against this? I mean, I think there's some things that we have that are some tips for that, that I would really like to hear you talk about, because I think that's, from my perspective, if it's coming, I want to avoid it, and I want to, or not avoid it, but to work through it in a healthy way, and want the people that are experiencing it now to be able to work through it in a healthy way. So one of the things you have on here is wait until you've sorted through your feelings before dealing with making decisions. Right? Yeah,
I mean, I think when midlife crisis hits you, it feels like a crisis. Like, I've got to do something now. This is my moment. I may never have good sex again. And so there's this, fear and panic almost. Yeah. And so people make choices in that state of mind that may have far-reaching repercussions. So, maybe it's like you keep bringing up the affair, which I think is one of the solutions that people make sexually. It's like, I don't know how to enliven this marriage sexually. I don't, I'm seeing my power being lost. I got to have sex while I can. Yeah. I got to have great sex now. And so they do step out and have an affair without necessarily going to therapy and talking with their partner about what they want and finding out what their partner wants. I mean, sex is a place that can change at midlife. Yeah. And I think the midlife crisis, any crisis, can be an opportunity.
Yeah. What you're saying is there's a false sense of urgency there, that something has to change right now if it's going to change at all. And the truth is that feelings wax and wane, they change, right? And so being able to sort through them and at first it helps you avoid some really devastating consequences.
Yeah, and I think your partner may have changed as well. I mean, I know when all our kids were out of the house in college and I mean, it was a difficult stage for us. It was much more difficult than we anticipated, having to reassess, what do we have in common? What do we want to have in common? I mean, there were, a few dicey months in there that we were really looking at each other and trying to figure out, what the next step is. I mean, gratefully, we found all kinds of things we had in common and places that we wanted to explore and things we wanted to do, but it's a difficulty.
Mm-hmm. Number 2 you have on here, I think, is a really good one. Throw away your inhibitions before throwing away your partner. Yeah. Tell me, what do you mean by that? I think that's a good one.
I think so many things sexually, have been maybe problematic in youth, right? Mm-hmm. I believed I needed to be X, Y, and Z. I needed to look a certain way, or I needed to act a certain way, or this is what the culture told me. And, you may be able to explore sexually in a brand new way in midlife, which, makes young people go, ooh, that's disgusting. Old people having sex. How great could that be? It's like, well, it could be actually really great.
And you're going to be old someday as well, so you want to have good sex.
And this is the denial, right? I mean, this is why it strikes us like all of a sudden. It's like, oh, my mother's looking at me in the mirror. Or my father's looking at me in the mirror. It's like, it's scary.
Yeah, so throwing those away and trying them with your partner before you're throwing your partner away, I think that is really key. And the third one you have, the administrator, buy the convertible, try an affair with your partner. What do you mean? What do you mean about those things?
Well, I think that, the idea of the affair is, you are doing all kinds of new things, right? Mm. I mean, how many people in midlife say, who are maybe trapped in their CEO job or their practice or whatever, and they say, you know what, I'm going to sneak off for an hour and a half lunchtime in a hotel room and call my partner, meet me downtown.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of jolt to an existing relationship could be very, very exciting. I mean, maybe the two of you buy the convertible and you go off to the beach every weekend or, I mean, why not try it? I think there's something so worthwhile in having somebody in your life who's known you all your life.
Yeah. And so you're really saying do those things together.
Try it first.
Yeah.
All that energy that you would put into an affair, try putting it into your existing relationship.
Or even the other things. I had a client who was going through something similar, and he decided to start jumping out of airplanes. And
my husband did that too. Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, I think if your partner could come alongside you and do that with you, that would change those things as well.
Never going to do that.
I don't see you jumping out of
I'm never jumping out of an airplane. No.
But if there was something else maybe that you were willing to do that he was wanting to do to try to kind of revitalize or quote unquote feel young again, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you would be up for.
Absolutely.
I think doing it together would make that difference.
But you're right. I mean, the new activities and the risks, people might try taking that together. I think that the biggest risk is asking for what you want and starting to reveal to your partner again the new midlife fantasies. Whatever they are.
Yeah, if you're a partner to somebody that's going through that, being open to hearing those, right, and not dismissing them as the midlife crisis, not just dismissing them because you've reached that point in life, but being open and willing to hear from your partner what they're going through.
And hanging on to your anxiety, like containing and managing your anxiety when your partner says, I've been fantasizing having sex with lots of other people. I mean, that's a scary thing to hear.
Yeah.
But if your partner is telling you that, they're keeping the intimacy between you and them.
Yeah.
And maybe you ask, instead of saying, well, thanks a lot, maybe you ask, well, what's the fantasy? Why now? What's going on for you? Tell me about those fantasies. What are you fantasizing about with other people? Yeah. And don't be so defensive that, you're not thinking about me 100% of the time. It's like, I think maybe one good blessing in midlife is that you become more realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to. What did you do when Derek told you he wanted to go jump out of an airplane?
Well, he didn't actually tell me. He just went and did it with my middle son. he blamed it on my middle son, who's an adventurer. This is the kid when he was 5 who would go down those great big water slides at the park. He was always up for an adventure. And so he blamed it on his 18th birthday or something and said, oh, he wanted to go do it. I'm like, yeah, great. And they're like, we didn't tell you because we knew you'd be against it and you'd feel too scared. But I will say my son has said once was enough. He doesn't think he'll do that again.
Awesome.
But we have some friends who recently, her father, I think he's 85 or something, and he just jumped out of his first airplane. So I guess there's still room.
Awesome. Well, we've been talking about midlife crisis, sex in the midlife crisis. And so just a quick recap of some of the things we talked about that might be helpful for you. One is just sorting through your feelings about it before making any big decisions, right? And avoiding some of those bigger consequences.
And throwing away your inhibition before you try throwing away your partner.
Yeah, I think that's just a big one. Trying an affair with your partner, which that just sounds like such a good thing to do to keep that excitement in there. Putting the energy that you would put into an affair into your partner would be really rejuvenating. Exactly.
And I'd just like to end that the philosopher Kestenbaum says, plan on 2 marriages in every lifetime, sometimes to the same person. So you're listening to Foreplay Radio Sex Therapy with your sex therapist, Laurie Watson, and your couples therapist, Dr. Adam Mathews. Thanks for listening about midlife crises and sex. Hey, help us stay on top here at Foreplay. We'd love it if you would subscribe and share it with your friends. And please take 1 sec and rate and review us. Thanks so much.